Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 225. I am Brendan. All right, UFC Fight Night, Andrade versus Blanchfield. We're going to talk about the prelims here. If you're looking for the main card and the main event, that's in the last video. This is just going to be the prelims. Real quick, before we start getting into the stuff, you like fight breakdowns, you like MMA, you like podcasts about MMA, you like talking about all that stuff. I cover all that here. UFC, Bellator, PFL, 1FC. Cover them here, 2 or 3 videos every single week, breaking down fights. Subscribe so you know the next video is coming out. Let's get it started. Okie dokie. So the featured prelim bout was Nazim Sadykhov versus Evan Elder. Kind of a anticlimactic end to what was turning out to be a great fight. So Evan Elder ends up getting a really bad cut on his right eye. Yeah, right here on his right eye. It was so bad. They had to stop it in the 3rd round. It sucked because I think it was going to go to I had it 1-1 going into the 3rd round. Let's talk about real quick about how we got there. So Elder landing a great left hand, he was landing some decent body kicks. Nazim landed a right hand that hurt Elder for just a second, and then Nazim started pressuring forward. He tried to corral Evan for a majority of this first round, but then Evan landed a right hand that momentarily dropped Nazim. And in this round, Elder might have landed more, which he did, right? So he landed 35 significant strikes to Nazim's 28. And even if he didn't land more, it was the damage that went the way of Elder. He landed the biggest shot of the round, and he kept up in the damage throughout. So I gave him that first round 10-9. Second round, both guys were landing really well. Elder ended up getting a takedown. Nothing really doing. He didn't get much with it. He did have some control time. Nazim landed a great right hand, then got the takedown himself. Less control time for him, though. Then the second round was pretty close. I would say the damage went the way of Nazim, but just barely. If you look in the striking numbers here, Elder was actually ahead in the second round as well, 32-29. I thought Nazim was ahead in the striking numbers, but I thought the damage did go the way of Nazim in the second round. You can see here a majority of the damaging shots from Evan were going to the body, 20 of 24, 20 for 24 for body shots from Evan, whereas Nazim landed 20 headshots. So that kind of carries more weight when it comes to damage. Force for force, right? So if you hit someone in the body or hit someone in the head, usually the head is going to count for it a little bit more if those 2 shots are equal. Usually. It's not always the case, but most of the time that's how it is. So I actually gave it the second round to Nazim, so I had it 19-19 going into the 3rd round. And there was a really bad cut on that right eye of Evan, which cut it short. So, by the way, if you're looking for a specific fight breakdown, the timestamps are down below. So it was unfortunate that this is the way it ended because I didn't feel like the way this 3rd round was going, it looked like it was going to go the distance, and it was going to be, I don't know that. It looked like it was going to be even in this 3rd round as well. So it looked like Evan, for my money, was at least keeping up, if not outright winning this fight. So I really wish it would have went the distance. Next fight, Lina Lansberg versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I've never been a fan of Bueno Silva, but she is a more athletic bantamweight. So she's one of the more interesting bantamweights when it comes to striking and grappling for sure. Really hard low kicks from her to start the fight. Then Lina Lansberg ends up poking her in the eye, which sucked, and they had to pause for a second there. That was really early on. Silva with the pressure and the good work to the body. Silva had way more damage in this first round and a lot of control, so I had her up 10-9. But if you look at this, good grief, what's going on with me? I don't know if I'm just really sleepy and that's why, or if the fumes from woodworking up here are starting to get to me. One of those 2 things. Could be a combination of both. So Silva ended up outlanding her as well in the first round, 24-17. Definitely her round. And then in the second round, it was weird. Silva ends up getting the takedown really early. She used a trip to get on top. She stayed on top, didn't do a lot of damage down there, didn't really do much, didn't attempt any submissions or anything, but then Lina gets out of that, gets back up to standing, and decides to go back into playing around on the ground, and now we're looking, and then she gets knee barred. Great for Silva, good win for her. It was just really stupid, like that whole sequence that led her there. I thought that was dumb. So this is 3 wins in a row for Bueno Silva. Good wins over Stephanie Egger and Wu Yanan. It's good wins for her. I was just trying to check out the rankings to see if she's bouncing around in any of them. Yeah, so Bueno Silva's ranked number 14. She should go a little bit higher because Lina Lansberg was ranked 12 before this. She called out Juliana Pena. I think that's a fine call out. She has not fought Amanda Nunes yet. It would be an interesting one, and a lot of these other matchups here in the top 10 would also be good for her. Misha Tate, Carol Rosa. There's a lot of good fights for her. I think she's interesting, and she could be champion in this division. This division is pretty weak, and I also think she would make a good matchup for Raquel Pennington. I think that would be fun to watch. Good win for Bueno Silva. Moving on to, I don't know if this guy is just overhyped or whatever, but Khusein Askhabov versus Jamall Emmers. So Khusein Askhabov, dude, I have no idea. He was, 26-0 coming into this? I don't know if he was, like I said, overhyped, or if the people he was fighting just were completely subpar, whatever it was. Maybe he just, got caught up in the moment. It seems like he has some skills. Like you could tell when he was moving that he does have some skills. It's just he doesn't look very polished for someone who's 26-0. Let's put it that way. So Emmers was using the 1-2 and the front kicks and to the legs at distance, keeping distance very well. Askhabov, was pressuring him against the cage. He landed a knee to the nuts. Askhabov landed some hard low kicks. He was swinging wide, missing crazy bad. Emmers responded with some good low kicks of his own. Emmers landed way more damage in this first round, landing the bigger shots more often. I had him up 10-9. If you look at the significant strikes, he was ahead 24-14. He was much more accurate as well. They had about the same level of activity. Askhabov was throwing big, stupid hooks in the second round, missing just like he did in the first round. Halfway through the second round, it was much closer with both guys landing what I felt like was about the same amount. And then Askhabov missed real big. Emmers landed a right hand to the side of the head. So Askhabov ends up dropping down. And then Emmers had, in that up-down position, kind of like free shots on him, started landing more damage. And he did way more in this round as well, outlanding him 27-13 in significant strikes. Again, about the same level of activity. He was more active as well, but he outlanded him by double in this round. Then in the last round, Askhabov I felt like he needed to learn some control and some cardio management because he was really tired. Emmers was able to control him for most of this last round. If you look at the control time, he had 3 minutes and 25 seconds of control in the third round, and he also outlanded him 11-3. Not even close. This last round wasn't quite a 10-8. You couldn't call it that because Emmers wasn't really close to finishing it with this. Although at the very end, he actually caught him in a Kimura and was probably about a couple inches away from finishing it as far as pressuring that elbow or the shoulder back like that. But there wasn't enough damage one way in that round to give him a 10-8. So I had him up 30-27. All three judges saw it that way as well. Good win for Emmers after having a 2-year layoff, I believe, due to injury. So that's a good win for him coming back. And Askhabov, I don't know if he's just, like I said, a complete hype job, or if he's, I don't know. I really don't. It's hard for me to tell because, like I said, it felt like he had some semblance of skill. It looked like he knew kind of what he was doing. Like, he had some positional things that he looked like he was good at. He just it. I don't know. But people are, and the thing is, like, I'm trying to stay a little bit reserved because some people online were ruthless, talking about like he's garbage. I don't think he's garbage. He definitely looks like he has some skills, and he he made a good account for himself, or of himself, for a majority of the fight until he got super tired. I mean, he, like I said, not polished. He looked a little sloppy. I don't know if he just is. Uh, they were bringing it up, I guess, while the fight was going on, and they were saying that he's used to being the hammer, right? He's used to bullying the other guys, going in there and just blowing the other guy out of the water, and this didn't happen. So maybe that's what made him look off. Stepping up in level of competition. That does happen to people. So I'm not ready to write him off as a total hype job. He wasn't that highly touted to where, people were calling him the next whoever. Right? That people weren't calling him the next McGregor. People aren't calling him the next anybody. They're not talking about him fighting for a title or anything like that, like some of the other guys that are like Mokayev. Some of these people who are all very good. It's just I didn't see that coming into this for Askhabov. So I'm not ready to write him off. I think he just needs to dial it back, kind of realize like his step up in competition and how he's going to have to adjust accordingly. And I think he could still compete in the UFC. I think he'd look fine. OSP fighting Philipe Lins. This was weird. Mostly because I realized how old, this is one of those moments where I realized like how old I am. Oh, focus. When they said St. Preux has had 20 plus fights in the UFC. That's crazy. Because I remember when he debuted back in the day. Sure enough, holy crap. Oh, man. Oh, those are Strike Force. That don't count. I guess maybe they are counting that now. But anyway, I remember his debut against John Vellante. I do remember that. But that was 10 years ago. Holy crap. Hell, like I said, I remember it. I remember when he was the new hot thing. Came in here, he was running through everybody, and then ends up losing to Ryan Bader. Knocks out who? Yeah, man, he was good there for a while, and then when he fought John Jones, everybody was talking about how John Jones looked like crap because he stepped up on short notice and this and that, or no, because he took OSP on short notice. Like OSP had like 1 week of training for John Jones, and he still had a decent performance. And OSP's always had really bad cardio, and he's had his flaws, but hell, man, he's been in the UFC long enough now where he's just trading wins and losses at this point. He has that loss to Alir Latifi, then a win versus Tyson Pedro, loss versus Reyes and Krylov, then a win versus Oleksiejczuk. Yeah, and then he had that weird, like heavyweight loss. I'm. I've said it before. I never thought he was champion level. I never felt that about him. Oh, by the way, Lynn's landed a straight left hand, then started to unload on him. He lands probably of these 18 shots that it says he landed here, probably 15 of those were in a barrage and uncontested. So he ends up getting the TKO finish or KO finish in the first round. But I'm just talking about OSP because he's getting a little long in the tooth. He has been competing in the UFC for a while now, and he's basically become part of the old guard at this point, which is strange for me. Like I said at the top of this, is one of those ones that made me realize that I'm old, because 10 years ago, I remember him debuting in the UFC, and I still feel like that's OSP to me, like he's the new guy, but he's really not. He's been around forever. I've never felt like he was going to be a champion. I don't think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I think he's just a decent competitor at light heavyweight and has been for a while. He just, I don't know if it's a work thing. I just, I, I, there's so much about watching him fight where I feel if he just put in a little bit more effort, he could have been champion because he has so many just ingrained skills. The power, the explosiveness when he wants to. It's just his cardio has always sucked. Always. Anyway, we don't need to harp on that one. I don't think he's retiring, so we will move on. We'll talk about that later. Cool. AJ Fletcher versus Themba Gorimbo. So Gorimbo comes in as the favorite in this. This was Gorimbo's UFC debut, and this guy also made a good account for himself. I thought he looked fine, and he had moments of dominance is the wrong word. Competence and excellence, but Fletcher just basically outworked him. So Themba was using poking front kicks to keep distance. He ended up ducking under one of Fletcher's shots and getting the takedown in the first round. Then Fletcher used wrist control to pull himself on top, works his way to mount, and then he landed decent elbows and some good damage from mount. Fletcher spent most of that first round on top. So if you look here, he had 3 minutes of control time in a round where he didn't get a takedown. So, Themba actually took him down to the ground and got reversed. So the striking numbers were 5-5. It was even, which is, I mean, that's kind of how I saw it, but I felt like the damage went to Fletcher. And even if it didn't, let's say they were even, or if it was slightly in Themba's favor, obviously that control time looms large, and Fletcher had that first round for me. Second round here, Fletcher landed a beautiful elbow. Then he dove on a guillotine as Gorimbo went for a takedown. Themba got away with a free tap and didn't get caught by the referee, and then he ends up tapping again. This is not the first time I've seen this. This is actually, I can remember, I don't remember who it was, but I remember this happening relatively recently with another person tapping to kind of get the guy to release pressure without fully tapping to where the referee is going to stop the fight. And I think it's outright cheating and bullshit. Okay, I don't know a lot of Themba's history, so I'm not gonna accuse him of that. Maybe it was just him, panicking a little bit, and maybe he did feel that he got control back. But I think that when someone goes to tap, regardless of how many times they do it, it needs to be caught immediately, and the fight needs to stop. Because yes, you're supposed to stay engaged, defend yourself at all times, and go for the finish at all times until the referee pulls you off. But there are instances when you are holding on to someone, it's just muscle memory that when someone taps, you release pressure. Whether you're a nice guy or you're an asshole or whatever, unless you have some rivalry with this person or you really want to cause them physical harm past what's technically allowed, by holding on to a submission longer, by hitting him after the bell, by throwing an extra shot that's unnecessary, whatever. Unless you are, really looking for that, most of the time when someone taps, the other person relieves pressure or releases that person. And when Themba did that here, when he tapped for momentarily and he taps, if Fletcher had released pressure and the referee didn't stop it, we'd be looking at a controversy. So I'm glad that Fletcher held on and got the full submission finish, and that the referee stepped in. I just feel like that's cheating, because you know what you're doing that when you barely tap and you're trying to get the guy to release pressure so you can get off. And then you could actually deny. You have plausible deniability. You can say, "Oh, I wasn't tapping. I was just looking to grab something." Oh man. I'm really going to have to do something about that up here. Woof. Anyway, let's move on to the first fight of the night here. Clayton Carpenter versus Juancamilo Ronderos. This fight was fun while it lasted. Total strikes. Holy shit. Oh, that's right. He was on bottom a lot. 46 of 56 for total strikes, but if you look at significant strikes, Ronderos only landed 1. That's one of those instances where you look at it, you're like, okay, well, what were those really doing? Because both guys were throwing a bunch. Carpenter landed a head kick, and then Ronderos got the takedown. But Ronderos got stuck in a triangle, then an armbar. Then Carpenter used that to get on top, get the back. Clayton, because he got the mount, and then he gets the back, and then he ends up getting the finish with the rear naked choke. So Carpenter showing off all kinds of skills and abilities in this one. He looked excellent. It's just funny to see this total strike number of 46 when there was one significant strike. That is a giant disparity. That's pretty funny. That's it. Overall, if you miss this card, this is one of those ones where you could probably throw it on in the background, while you're cleaning or you're doing, I guess, homework or something, doing some stuff around the house or whatever. You could throw this one on and kind of poke your head around or pay attention just a little bit when you hear them start to get animated. Maybe rewind it to catch the action. I would not sit down and watch this one from start to finish if I wasn't doing the analysis. I will tell you that, knowing what I know now, it was kind of a slog to get through. And there were quite a bit of finishes, and that should tell you about my excitement for the both the matchups and then the action. There were some good fights, like I said. So if you go back and watch this, like the Evan Elder fight versus Sadykhov was great. And then in the main card, Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez was good. But a lot of this could have been skipped. Like, you can skip a lot of this card and not miss out on much. Obviously, I'd watch the main event just to kind of get a feel for Erin Blanchfield, seeing her kind of dominate Andrade. And then as far as the prelims go, maybe watch the last 2 fights. So Lina Lansberg versus Mayra Silva. I'd watch that one because Silva might be making a title run here. And then Evan Elder versus Nazim Sadykhov, because they were really good, and that was a good fight. So I would watch those 2 if you're really hardcore into this stuff. You could probably skip most of the other ones as far as the prelims go, that's for sure. Okay. Yeah, that's it. If you like MMA, you like podcasts, you like this stuff, if you see so fit, please subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. I'd really appreciate it. If this is the only video you watch this week, awesome. Thank you for spending time here. If you're looking for the main card and the main event, that's in the last video. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Thank you, guys. Thank you. I love y'all. See you later.